Why is it important for you to share about Holocaust stories to younger generations, I guess?
I think with the years there'll be less people who can tell it alive. Obviously, every year there's less survivors. And eventually it'll just be history. And we don't want people to forget because it was such a huge, horrible event. It can't be forgotten. And I always looked at it that it's my job. I have to talk about it. Since I'm able and since I'm fluent in English.
Yeah.
Now, some people are only fluent in whatever European language they knew. So that limits where they can speak. Anyway, sometimes we get volunteers from overseas who don't know Hebrew, and they're very happy that someone wrote something in English that they can read. So one tells the other, and I get a knock on my door. Somebody told me you have an interesting book about your terrible experiences. And I said, yes, you can borrow it. So this is how I started talking, because first we wrote a book. I never dreamed. My profession was I was a bookkeeper. I was never a public speaker.
You suit the job very well.
I developed it myself, and I changed over the years what I say. When I first started talking, I more or less gave what's in the book, which includes stories of cousins. And nowadays I don't mention them because I have newer things to add. And I was invited, one of the newer things I think is important for people to hear was that I was invited to Moscow. I didn't pay for it. I was invited and I took my daughter because I was told not to go alone. I'm too old to go on such a trip alone, which was a good idea because it was ice was melting. It was, it was the beginning of it was February. Ice melting from the trees meant the streets were slippery, and my daughter held on to me. But I was only a day and a half from Moscow, but I spoke there, and they were honoring a man who saved a lot of people. A man who was a counselor from Portugal, and they were honoring his life because somebody made a film about him, and I can mention his name, De Sousa Mendes. Yeah, so that's why I got to Moscow. So with the years, I've become famous, and I get invited, and I was in the Foreign Office last year on the International Holocaust Memorial Day, which is in January 27th, and I spoke to 25 of our ambassadors. Yeah, nobody else can get up in English that they know of that they could send to this. And for me, it was a big honor. And it wasn't taped because they wanted the ambassadors to feel free to make any comments and not be worried that they might say something that's not appropriate to be heard. Of course, none of them said anything to be worried about anyway. They were very polite and thanked me and were interested. But this was for me an honor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And with the years, I have a record that I've spoken to approximately 19,000 people in groups. I've also had young high school kids come to interview me because when they're in their third year of high school, they're supposed to find a Holocaust survivor, interview them, and write a paper.